Welcome back, it's me Lou. For today's video, we are going to take a look at a custom action figure that I made. Alright, so to clarify things, this is not a standard retail action figure. This is something I kind of customized and made myself. So what we have here is a kind of slightly different take on Batman. And I'll go into the story behind this figure in a second. But it was kind of a simple custom, nothing that crazy. And let's talk about the process a little. Alright, so the other day I was visiting one of my favorite collectible toy stores, and that's Wax Packs Records and Toys, located in beautiful Roselle, Illinois. If you happen to be in the Chicagoland area, check it out. So while I was at the store, I came across this action figure used. This is the McFarlane DC Multiverse Robert Pattinson Unmasked Batman action figure. Alright, so I found this at the store, and I don't know, I was kind of just immediately drawn to it. I reviewed this figure previously months ago, but the version I reviewed had the masked head. This is the unmasked version. You know, when I was at the store, sometimes I'll just buy random toys, you know, just to like fiddle around with, especially if they're loose. If they're loose, you know, they're cheaper. And then I bought this guy, and then once I brought him home, I didn't realize that the person who previously owned this figure kind of made some slight modifications to it. For one, the previous owner cut off the cowl that's underneath his head, and like that's kind of wrapped around his neck. And you know, I kind of noticed that much later. You know, I think if I noticed that while I was at the store, I probably wouldn't have bought the figure, because it kind of bothered me when I got home. I'm like, dude, someone already messed around with this. You know, even though I might have had intentions of, you know, possibly customizing it, it always kind of bothers me that when I get a loose action figure and I kind of see that, you know, the previous owner, they kind of fiddled around with it. I mean, this has happened before. I'd buy like a loose Transformer, and I wouldn't realize until much later when I got home that, you know, the previous owner tried modifying it or customizing it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they might have sold it, because maybe they messed up, or their OCD gets kind of crazy. But either way, you know, when I got this figure and brought it home, the guy cut off the cowl, and it was a really messy cut too. For some reason, I didn't notice it in the store. Another issue that I had with this figure were these horrible shoulder pads. Every time I tried to move the figure's arms, the shoulder pads would just like flop around, and it was a mess. So I decided that I was gonna do something with this action figure, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just kind of convert it into the version of Batman that I kind of want. Which brings us to this guy here. This is kind of like a weird amalgamation between like the film Batman and the comic book Batman. Alright, so for one, like I pointed out earlier, the previous owner, they cut out the cowl, and you can kind of see a sloppy cut right behind the neck. And I to the best of my ability, I kind of cleaned it up with an X-Acto knife. There's some parts I couldn't clean out that well, just because parts of the cowl are kind of glued onto the body. So I kind of just did with that. The head you'll notice here is not the stock head. I took off the Robert Pattinson head and I swapped it on with a comic book style Batman. So I think this head is actually a Mattel Batman head from way back when. I believe this is the DC Classics Yellow Lantern Batman head. For whatever reason, it was in my parts bin, and I'm like, you know what, it's a slightly smaller head. But I still think proportion-wise it works kind of well with this body. I also like how this head, he's kind of snarling. It's a much angrier looking version of Batman. I did away with the shoulder pads right there. I cut them off. Every time I'd move the figure's arm, the shoulder pads would kind of flop around, and it was kind of annoying the piss out of me. And I think it's a cleaner look to it. It kind of slopes down his shoulders and his arms, and I think it creates a better silhouette for the character. One thing I'm a big fan of is Batman's yellow utility belt. In the film, Robert Pattinson, he kind of wears the full-on, like, very utilitarian black utility belt. You know, it's very straight to the point. Growing up, I was a big fan of, like, the Adam West Batman 66 utility belt, and also like the live action versions of Batman. whether it be the Michael Keaton from Batman '89 or the Christian Bale Batman. I always like the stark contrast between, like, the dark colors and the gold, especially with the Michael Keaton costume. The all black costume with the yellow utility belt, I think looks really awesome. So I kind of wanted to recreate that look here. So I went ahead and I kind of cobbled together my own yellow utility belt. So the way I did that is I took a spare Marvel Legends vest. It was like completely like yellow plastic. It's the one that comes bundled with, I think, like, I want to say the Hydra Trooper. And it has like a giant combat knife on the back, and then has grenades on the front and some bullets. But that vest has all sorts of pockets and straps. So I kind of just like chopped it up and Frankenstein together this utility belt. Has all the pouches, has the buckle in the front. And I really like the contrast. I think it's kind of like a nice shout out to like the the old Batman '89 design. But at the same time, I kind of like that it's kind of retro / modern aesthetic, especially what we see in the comic book sometimes. Like the Frank Miller utility belt. I think Jim Lee did this also prior to the New 52. It's kind of like the belt buckle that has just like a lot of standard normal looking pouches. It's not very science fiction looking. And I kind of like that look. I just like normal looking pouches. But I also like the utility belt to be very broad, and very thick looking. And then the rest is pretty much stock. I had to swap out the hands because I pulled off the hands, and because I like these hands a lot, but I wanted to use them on another custom. So I pulled off the hands and I just swapped on these Marvel Legends ones, which works well because if you look at the aesthetic, it kind of matches this gauntlet design. It's kind of like an armored knuckle, and it kind of fits in well with the rest of this uniform. So yeah, it's a simple custom. I just took this and kind of made the Batman figure I did want. There's nothing wrong with this figure. The Batman figures from the live action film are all really cool. But, for me, I just wanted to have fun and take on the challenge and see if I could make like a very standard looking Batman. And I think it's all right. It's kind of like a weird amalgamation between the comic books and the film. If I could do anything different, ideally I'd like to paint his briefs here black. Because I'm a big fan of the old gray and black costume, and I hate it when they just color the briefs gray. I really think that Batman and Superman should wear their underwear on the outside of their pants. So ideally, I would have painted this black. There's a part of me, if I had the skill set, I would love to just rip off this bat emblem and change it. As much as I loved the Matt Reeves Batman film, it annoys the hell out of me that on the bat logo, there's no bat head in the middle. It's just the two wings. So, a part of me was thinking of just ripping this off and creating my own bat logo with the actual head and broader wings, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that yet. And because I don't think I'd be able to do it cleanly. I think that's the big thing. For me, like I say all the time, with my customs, I like doing stuff that looks very stock. If you saw this in a store, this, it looks like a very stock action figure. I don't like a lot of, like, handcrafting or, like, overly done paint jobs. I want it to look as basic and as toy-like as possible. So, if I get to the point, where I feel comfortable enough and my skill set's high enough, I might rip the bat logo off here and just create a new one. Because it looks cool, but it just bothers me that for whatever reason they felt the need to, like, remove the head from the bat. I do like the cape a lot. The cape's pretty neat. It's a nice thinner material. But yeah, I think it's alright. It's not perfect by any means, but like I said, it's just more so a fun challenge. It kind of reminds me of, like, the Spin Master line of Batman figures. If you're familiar with their 12-inch figures, Spin Masters, they make all sorts of different, like, Batman costumes. And for me, this kind of reminded me of that. This is just a slightly different yet familiar version of Batman. And one thing I might change also in the future is his gauntlets. I don't like this design here. I'm not sure what these are in the movie. I think they're supposed to be like darts or arrows. It looks kind of stupid. I kind of preferred the just the plain looking gauntlets. Or if you're gonna go that kind of like armored high tech route, I kind of like the stuff that they did in like the video games, like Arkham Asylum, Arkham Origins, or Arkham Knight. I think this is a little excessive. It kind of reminds me of like something you'd see like on a Mandalorian armor or something. It just looks weird. I don't know. I'm not too keen on that. Like, for me, Batman shouldn't necessarily use projectile weapons outside of the Batarang and his grappling gun. You know, for him to shoot darts, it just seems kind of odd. Alright, so let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.